Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Siblings It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just ain't typical. I'm Eric, she's Donna, and we are the Real Siblings. We are both professional realtors with Keller Williams, and in high school band, she played French horn, and I played tuba. The podcast blends lifestyle together with real estate as we work to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. While the topics vary and our conversations always go many directions, we endeavor to provide our listeners with insights into our industry, better equipping them for their next real estate transaction. And this is a special episode for us. Russ, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm like,
so much fun.
We're hearing people from at the game or whatever. So if somebody goes, woo!
All right, so Donna, I'm going to pass it to you so you can introduce our guests.
Thank you. You know, we've had a couple of other visitors, and actually Russ's daughter, Rachel, was one of our first guests on here. We talk a lot about our homes, but we also talk about our lifestyles. So this week we have visitors from the hometown where we grew up, which if you've listened through the year, you know where that is. You know the name is Lindsey. You know it's a pretty small town. And I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and then share maybe if they can, how many years of family history they think they have. So Andrea and Ryan, you're to my right. So let's start with you.
Yes, so we're Andrea and Ryan Smith, and I think we have about 150 years of history. My great-grandparents were living in Lindsey. And actually the house that we live in now. We think it's about 150 years.
Okay.
I thought.
Yeah. Andrea, was that an Opelt or was it a different surname at that point?
Burkett.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So my grandma's maiden name was Burkett, and then she married an Opelt. Yeah. And so I was an Opelt before I married Ryan Smith.
And that's a whole long thing, like back to elementary school and stuff. Daryl, you're next on my list.
Okay, well, the farm that we live on was bought in 1917 by my great-great-grandfather. He came from the Napoleon, Ohio area, leaving there to find a dry community to live in. We've been told that all along, that the reason they moved to the Lindsey area was it was a dry community.
Wow.
My grandparents grew up here, my parents grew up here, and I grew up here also, although we don't claim to be Lindsey residents. We live in the outskirts of Lindsey. We're outside of the corporation limit. This farm that we live on is a farm that has been in the family since 1917.
So 116 years, right? If I'm doing the math, or 106 years? 106 years.
I don't do math that quickly, Eric.
Something like that, yeah.
And Daryl, is it in fact Knipp Road, right? It is called.
We do live on Knipp Road. I've never really heard the story about that. I assume it had something to do with my great-grandfather.
That's awesome.
I don't know what the story is.
Wow, very cool.
Wow.
All right, Russ, you're outstanding in your field. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, I am. This is Russ Zimmerman, and I've been trying to think in my head about the time Ruthie and I have lived in the area since we've been married, which has been 50 years. And I've lived here my whole life. And my dad actually went to school in Lindsey when he was younger, probably junior high. So I'm going to say we've probably been our family's been involved with Lindsey since about 1942, 43, somewhere in there. So compared to, the Smiths and the Opelts, we're kind of rookies.
Yeah, but between all of you guys got like 300 to 400 years in Lindsey. That's a lot.
Okay, compared to our 1959 to 2001 when Dad sold the house.
Yeah.
And our arc of being in the city ended.
Yeah. So Eric, why don't you chat with them just a little bit more about the homes that they live in, maybe what they've done through the years to update them.
Okay, and I decided we didn't have this any specific plan. Ryan and Andrea, I'm going to throw back to you because I think I know your house the best.
You do. It was my great-grandparents' home. My parents bought it in the early 70s. So I was raised here in the home. They did a few construction projects, added on, renovated the kitchen, renovated several areas. And then Ryan and I purchased it when we got married in 96. Look at that. He even remembered what year we got married.
Good job for you, Ryan. That's extra points.
Right.
That was after returning from service, right?
That's right. So it's probably around the year, let me see, that was it's probably about the year 2000. Then there was a back fruit cellar and a little pantry area. We ended up taking that off and ended up putting a addition on, attached garage with an upstairs room. So we added quite a bit of square footage to the house then.
Wow.
Do you
Wow.
still have what was the barn or the back on the behind in addition to the garage there?
Old horse barn back by the alley still.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the throwback from when we didn't have cars and the main source of transportation was horse and buggy. If it's been in the family that long, you had animals right behind your house.
Yep. Interesting.
And I have to say this is we've talked several times in our episodes about our newspaper routes, and of course that's, Andrea, why I know the house best, because I used to deliver Toledo Blade and News Messenger to your mom and dad and your grandparents right next door. So I'd stop there regularly to get my $1.25 back when you could buy a whole week's worth of papers for $1.25.
And we used to make fun of our dad when we would go to his hometown and he would tell us who lived there, like when he delivered papers, and now we do that. So we are now officially them.
All right. Well, Russ, what about you and Ruthie in your house?
Well, we got kind of a different story in that right before we got married, I got one of the guys that lives just on the north side of Fremont called me and said, "You have a place to live?" I said, "I don't." He said, "I got one I want you to look at." Went and looked at it. Had 2 nice maple trees in the front yard, but it had all of his farming buildings and stuff in the back. And I was just wondering how this is going to work. And he said, the only thing is, if you buy it, you got to move it. And so I thought, well, to move, I'm not into that. So, and I kept asking him, I said, "Well, what do you want for it?" And he said, "We'll work something out. I was on the fire department back then also, and fire chief said that this guy had a house, and he said he's got somebody looking at it, and if he don't take it, he's going to burn it down. And so I thought, well, he doesn't want much for it. I called him back. I said, "What are you thinking?" He said, "We was thinking maybe $1,000. So I talked to my dad. I said, who do you contact to move a house? And he had a company that he had worked with through the construction company, called him. So the long and short of it is, it used to sit on 590. Just a little bit, probably a couple 100 yards from the overpass. And when the wheat came off of the fields, we jacked the thing up, took it across the fields, took it over to the northwest corner of their farm, put it on a 2-acre lot. And so that's how we got our house where it's at. And then we've added on to it. I think we've had 3 additions to it. And so it's not the main house is kind of in the middle, but it's right there. And so I always tell people that I mowed the yard after I figured out what was going on, because when Ruthie would mow the yard, I'd come home and she said, I got to thinking, if we put an addition on this corner. So I started mowing the yard myself, and it worked out well. But that original house is over probably 120 years old, but it's been completely gutted and redone that we've done with it, and so that's where we're at.
So original house, 120 years old. You think you still have basically the floor and the studs? Because exterior, I know you all redid everything.
Right. Yeah. But the inside, I mean, if you go in the basement, it's got 8x8 beams in it, and it's got the full 2-inch native, joists and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Of course, the new, but we took it down to bare studs when we put the addition on and changed the whole inside. That was back in '89 when we did that.
I was gonna say I was still.
Wow. Now, Daryl, I understand you and Kate live in the newest house, right? Relatively speaking.
I guess that would be true. Yeah. It's 20 years old now, 21 years old.
Okay.
So my story's a little bit different too. I didn't get married until I was 50 years old. So this was the first house that I could really say was mine, that my parents didn't live in or something like that. I lived with my parents until that time. It was a family farming operation, and it was just efficient the way it was. And then Kate found me, and here we are. So 21 years later, this is
all right, Kate found you?
Well, sort of. So this house is a 3-bedroom ranch style home, kind of a retirement home. We weren't ready to retire when we built it, but we knew we would be eventually. And when we get old and get bad hips and bad knees and everything, we needed a 1-story house, we thought. So that's the way we built it.
So Andrea and Ryan, I don't know if you know this, but Kate and I were doing theater together, and she had met Daryl, and she was asking me about him because I was from Lindsey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
there's this guy at the gym that I see walking. I don't remember what I said, Daryl, but it must have been fine.
What could you say? There's nothing else to say, right?
Oh,
Okay.
listen to you.
All right. And Daryl, I have to say, I'm doing my show notes. And you remember those days when you were hoodwinked into teaching high school Sunday school over at the church?
I don't know if I really ever taught, but I was probably supposed to be teaching.
Yeah, well, and do you know that it was Darren Drager and Steve Nicewander and I were the three guys that showed up most of the time. And whenever I hear your name, what automatically goes through my head is Uncle Daryl, because that's what we called you.
Really?
When we're at YF, it's like, did you see Uncle Daryl today?
That's new. That's a new one to me. I didn't realize that.
This is like Paul Harvey, the rest of the story.
Well, I've got a little information for you that maybe you don't know, but the house that you grew up in, the one across from the church,
Yeah.
that was owned by my grandmother's brother, Wesley Miller.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You were part of the Millers. Okay.
See,
Well, my grandpa Knipp married Lula Miller. So that's how that is. And at that time, the old retired farmers moved to town, moved to Lindsey, and then their next generation stayed and farmed the farm. So I think that's what happened with Wes. I'm not sure, but
and I think it was Wendell who had given us pictures back in the day, because the porches that are on the house were not the original. They were more of the small 3-foot stoop with the white spindles on it. We remember seeing pictures like that should say Mr. Miller, my math teacher, Wendell brought over to the house one time.
And Wendell was my grandmother's nephew.
Okay, so that's how he ended up with the pictures.
It is fascinating for me still to know that I have to be careful what I say about whom, because it doesn't matter if it's been 50 years, because somebody is related to them. And unless I hear it out of their own mouths about their crazy aunt, then I'm not allowed to say that. So,
okay, you're a crazy aunt. Crazy ants are wood destroying insects in Texas.
Oh Lordy! When we would go to the house before Dad bought it, and I say Dad because he just came home and told Mom he bought it, we were like scared to trick or treat there. It was like the house that was like dark and a little bit scary, and they were sleeping in what my dad turned into the library there, downstairs and stuff. And I don't know if you remember, Ryan and Andrea, I don't know if you ever trick-or-treated there before we lived, but they gave pennies out.
Now, Ryan was probably young enough. I was just going to say it wasn't that scary, but Ryan and Andrea, do you remember putting the cat skeleton and the rat skeleton on the front step?
My dad did that.
I don't remember that.
Anyway, enough about that.
Who did that?
My dad.
Yeah, my dad. Yeah. He thought that was cool. I am praying that when I come back this summer that the house looks better, but I've not heard great things. So I'm not holding my breath. All right.
It is looking better than it did a year ago. Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree.
All right, good. There's
Yay, anything. It seems like it would have been this much and it would have been better. But all right, so let's talk about why we really have brought you here today. Besides, it's great fun hearing your stories. So there is an event coming up in July, which Ryan or Andrea, I think you emailed me about a number of months ago that this was going to happen, and you're calling it a homecoming, right? And then there's this whole sunflower thing, which Eric and I are trying to figure out who started a sunflower farm and how that got going. Since you told me about it, Andrea, I'll start with you. How did this come about? We're going to have a party in the park.
So Lindsey always had a chili festival at Washington Elementary. Yep. And for years and years and years, the Lions Club did an ice cream social.
Ice cream social and pancake and sausage dinner too, as I remember. I remember those Zimmerman boys bringing extra buttermilks around.
Yeah. So there were always big events that happened in our village.
We had a Labor Day parade for years.
Sure, that's right.
As the Lions Club kind of got smaller and there weren't members, some of those ice cream social went away, the Labor Day festival went away. And then when the school was torn down, there was no longer a chili festival. So Lindsey doesn't have a thing. And I've been stewing on the fact that Lindsey doesn't have a thing for a couple years since COVID. I even messaged Russ and Daryl on a whim one day when we were during lockdown COVID and said, we have to do something to revitalize Lindsey. And I don't know what this crazy idea is, but I respect the two of you very much. And so I'm thinking about things. And then it didn't really go anywhere. Last summer, so there is a field there, Craig and Carmela Turno, own a field about, what is that, a mile outside of town.
Which way?
One road west.
One road west on 92 there, right down from Bob and Sandy Reed.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And so they have a sunflower field. And I took Ava out there for her graduation pictures. And while we were standing there getting graduation pictures taken, it just hit me like, okay, if this is going to be their thing, what if we connect to this field, their Blossom Field? Because people were driving from all over. People at work were telling me about, did you hear about this sunflower field in Lindsey? People were driving from Oregon to come and see it. I mean, they had a big following. They have a website and they were doing all kinds of things to.
That would be the town of Oregon for our listeners, not the state.
I was going to
of
say,
Oregon.
they were coming all the way from the Pacific Northwest.
Long
That's-
trip.
They did come from states away, but it was usually Michigan.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yes. So while we were taking the
Coach.
pictures, I went and talked to them and just said, I have this crazy idea. Would you be open to having a conversation? And they said yes. So we drove out there. I asked them if their plan was to continue to do it every year. They showed me that they have it mapped out because you have to rotate fields.
Right.
So that for the next 10 years, they know exactly the location of where their sunflower fields will be based in close
Awesome.
proximity to Lindsey. And they were all about the idea. So that would have been last July, a year ago, that conversation took place. So then I spent the Sandusky County Fair Week talking to everyone that I could about this crazy idea and said, if we decide to do this, would you help? And everybody that I mentioned it to thought it was a great idea. And everybody said, yes, we should do it. Yes, we should do it.
So, Andrea, are there going to be multiple locations, or is everything basically going to be out there at the sunflower farm?
No, so we're going to have tons of things in our park, in the Lindsey Village Park. We have a schedule from 10 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock, and we have events all day. And then there is going to be a shuttle that runs back and forth to the sunflower field. So people can ride a shuttle and go to visit that, and they have some events. And then we also have the old Roush Farm on the south side of town that's now Creek Bend Farm.
Creek Bend Farm?
Creek Bend Farm. They are going to have events at Creek Bend Farm that day, and they are going to run a shuttle back and forth from the park to Creek Bend Farm. So if people make the journey to Lindsey, they can go to 3 different spots over the course of the day. And
Wow.
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out whether I will be able to maintain from like 10 in the morning till like 10 at night. That's like
You
amazing.
will.
Are
You
we?
will, because I just heard we have an espresso cart that just sent in.
Oh,
an
then there you go. Yeah, that'll do it, Andrea. Are you going to open up the firehouse? Like I'm thinking about the weather and stuff. So let's go to somebody else. So
It's going
Daryl.
to be a beautiful day.
Thank
It's going
you,
to be a
Derek.
very
Okay.
dry, sunny day. Temperature's
you.
going to be about 80.
Chamber of Commerce weather. I got it.
That's why Daryl's one of my favorites right there. That's why he's one of my favorites.
It's like the
You're
church.
going to ask me. You're going to ask me how I got involved, and I'll tell you. You just
Tell me.
can't tell Andrea no.
Oh,
You just can't tell Andrea no. So
Andrea,
that's why I'm.
awesome. So what is your role in this, Daryl? Besides not telling Andrea no?
Well, I kind of got pulled into it not only by Andrea but my wife too, who
Of course.
wanted to be engaged with it very early on with kids stuff. I mean, that's kind of her world. So she asked me to go to a meeting, and before I left the meeting, I was on the board that there's a nonprofit board that's being established to be the liability people, or kind of pull everything together. We're a nonprofit, and I got on that board. That's the kind of things I've done in the community for years and years, mostly agricultural related, but
Yeah.
this one kind of mixed, Lindsey with agriculture too. So it was a good fit.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
And Russ, where do you fit in?
I'm in the logistics thing of this and helping figure out where we're going to put all the carts and everything, along with Ryan and RF. And then also with you asked about the firehouse being open. We're going to have the bingo, cakewalk, and historical pictures are going to be in the fire station. But if the weather turns nasty or whatever, I mean, we'll do whatever we got to do. And again, that's one thing about Lindsey, the village and surrounding community. When Andrea wanted to get this thing going, and she said everybody thought it was a good idea. And, it's just one of them things that, the community just pulls together. And if we have a rainy day, we're gonna have people putting up tents and whatever we need to do to make it work. I mean, it's just one of those things that we do. That's all.
So through the years, you guys, I've been back here. I've lived out here now 23 years. And there are many times when we talk about home, God, I cry all the time. I remember the ramp that you guys built on the house when Mom couldn't walk out of the house. And the church put up a ramp on the Lynn Street side so that Dad could take Mom for a walk in the wheelchair.
And wasn't that a relocation?
Wasn't what a relocation?
The ramp. Was the ramp built new? I thought Dad had said it was the one that they built down at Baker's house when Chase had lost his leg in the accident.
Oh, that could be a relocated ramp. I didn't know that, but
that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's and you guys, no matter where we go, we have to find a community, right? So my church here has been a big part of my community. And a few years ago, we have a lot of retirees, right? So we started a program called Handy Hands, where people who came with skill sets from other jobs could help those of us. So now being single, I don't care if I can climb a ladder or not. I'm not going to climb the ladder, and I'm not going to do things by myself without having somebody else at the bottom of the ladder, right? So we have had locksmiths and window people, and the predominantly men, but not always, volunteer from our church, and we can go in and ask people to come and help with things like that. And it reminds me a little bit, of just the fact that the small town and your church centralized, right? Supporting each other, which is very cool. So my friend,
go ahead.
So my friend Bonnie told me that she's been storing an antique for me from the house. So I don't know if you know this, that Mike Pendleton got something out of the house for me. I bought it. He took it to Bonnie. Bonnie's had it. And the reason Adam and I are driving back is to get that from Bonnie, because it won't fit on a plane.
You're going to break my heart, Donna. I thought you were driving back because you really want to come to our festival.
That too. It worked out that's when my trip went. But I don't know if I've told you this, that the next day Adam is driving me to Cleveland because I'm leaving for Germany on the 30th from Cleveland. So it's this and then he's driving back to Denver with the spindly wood thing that I don't know what it's called. But Bonnie says you're going to do some tours of the schoolhouse that she's remodeling. Have you guys been in there?
I was there right after she purchased it. I haven't been in since she's done so much work, but she's going to have it open for about 3 hours during the day.
That's what she said.
Wow.
I asked her if there was a room for me to stay in yet. And she was like, no.
I don't know who to address this question to, but with the other Lindsey swag, and there you go. See, I'm still representing. Not that I may keep shirts for a long time, but I have a world-class collection of t-shirts going back decades. Is there going to be new swag for the homecoming?
We are going to have some things, but we're not selling t-shirts because the Sunflower Field, they have shirts that they sell there. So we're trying to be a partnership arrangement, but not
considerate of them.
Anybody's. Yeah, we're trying to be really cooperative.
Okay. So I can't say whatever it is, Donna, get a 3X.
Okay, whatever it is, just buy, unless it's like a cup, and then I won't get a 3X cup.
Right.
Adam is so nervous about performing, you guys. He goes, Mom, I don't even know what kind of music they listen to. I'm like, I don't care. Play whatever you want. I'm sure if you pick some genres that somebody there will like it. We are all ages. And then I asked him to learn something special. And he's like, please stop asking me to learn things that were your favorites in 1975.
Okay.
Hey, Adam does know who George Strait is, don't he?
Well, a little bit, but he's mostly.
Hey, George Strait is my kind of music now, Russ. That's my world.
If he's going to do country, he does like Johnny Cash, like Ring of Fire and stuff like that. But he wants to do some of his originals too. And I told him he had
Hunter Bay Cafe.
Hunter Bay Cafe. But he's got to do the Christmas one because the Christmas one's about Lindsey. He goes, Mom, it's July. I'm like, I don't care.
And somebody needs to record it because I need a copy. He hasn't gotten me a copy yet to do a video.
Yeah, there you go. You guys, what are you expecting from a turnout? I mean, any idea?
I have no idea. I have dreams about it all the time. And sometimes I have dreams and there's like just our committee of 35 people standing in the park. And then sometimes I have dreams that there's lots and lots of people. So I don't know. We're getting a lot of exposure.
I think if it's a nice day and the weather's nice, there will be a lot of people because there's been a lot of on social media. We can tell there's the word's getting around, and so I've had a lot of feedback from it so far. So if it's a nice day, there could be a lot of people.
Have you been able to get with any of like local Toledo news stations and do anything with them?
We haven't yet, but that we're working on that. We're posted on like the Ohio Festival site now. So that's part of that. And we're in a couple different like local magazine, touristy lifestyles and things. But our social media, the day we posted our schedule, it was shared like 400 times. And then you can tell how many people liked it. And it was like 1,500 people liked it the day we posted the schedule. So if that's any indication, we might have a good showing. We certainly have a lot of things planned, so I'm hoping.
Wow. So if turnout is good, is this going to become an annual event? Or has it been so much work for 35 of you that it's going to be another decade?
Daryl and Russ, I'll let you answer that.
I mean, I don't see any reason not to do it. I mean, like Andrea said, it's kind of replacing the Lions fish fry and stuff they did on Labor Day, as long as with the parade. And I think once we get the logistics down for this first one, then there's just some adjustments you got to make from this year or whatever it might be. But I see no reason not to do this thing and just keep it going every year, because if the people show up, they'll come back.
I tell you, if it does, I can't do this year. But if we make it beyond, promise my wife and I will get back there.
With Caleb getting married this year and us asking everybody to go to Denver, it's a lot to also ask them to go to Ohio in July. I'm just the one.
For all of us who have families and kids and everything else, Donna's just the free wheel and
go whenever I feel like it. Yeah. And I have invited, my cousin is coming from, like, he lives where my dad grew up in Eastern. He's coming because I can't go see him. And I have invited everyone on our little Lindsey 8th grade page. I'm like, you have no excuses. Carolyn Avers, you still have family here. Betsy Leeser, you still have family here. There's like no reason for you to, even Krylik, who freaking lives in Fremont, get to Lindsey. Whatever.
Get to Lindsey.
Yeah. We're hearing that. I'm hearing some other people say that they've talked to their graduating classes and they're planning to get together. And so.
Yeah. Nancy Hector and I spoke the other day. She's talking about coming. Yeah, Nancy Hector Lee. Is she your class, Daryl? Was Nancy in your class?
No, she's much younger than I am.
All right, I have to ask before we close this one down. Did everybody go to Washington Elementary?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And did you call it that? Donna and I had having discussions about it. I think Ryan, Andrea, and myself, it was Washington Elementary because at that point we had Lutz, we had Stom, we had all the rest of them out of Fremont. But Daryl, Russ, was it
Russ just
township school? What?
We were just Washington. I don't know that we said elementary. I mean, we went through 8 grades when I was there.
Right. You were 8th grade. Isn't there a basketball picture of you on the team?
Oh, there should be.
I think I remember seeing a black and white.
Yeah. We had a unique thing with our 8th grade basketball team. 5 out of the 6 most played players were left-handed.
Wow. That's like Lindsay school trivia. Somebody needs to.
Yes.
You just added an event for the homecoming.
What class had the most left-handed basketball players? Oh my God.
And Russ was one of them.
And Russ, oh really? Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. We post on the 16th and the 28th, which Eric's birthday and my birthday. This month is our actually birthday month. So when this posts on June 28th, it'll be my birthday. We figure that's a good month in advance. And I always do the video. I don't correct anything. Eric fixes it and makes it podcastable and, takes out the ridiculousness and stuff. Spends way more time on it than I do.
Some of the ridiculousness.
Yeah. And then it's on Spotify and that kind of a thing. So I'll share it on the pages and stuff, because I know that there's a lot of people. Part of having you here is that you do have so much history in town. And I think that's super cool. And I'm super excited to come back, even if it's only for a day. So
we're excited. We're very excited. Our slogan is proud of our past and excited for our future. So that's kind of our intention moving forward.
And I am supposed to stay with Ernst and Carolyn like I usually do, Hillenbrand. but Carolyn got hurt pretty badly. So I have to make sure, but I started checking on hotels, and you all get way too much for hotels in the summer in that area. I might sleep in the park before I pay for a hotel.
Donna's the homeless person on the park bench the morning you start setup.
In the one old Seemann Park or whatever. So Eric, why don't you take us out of here?
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening and joining us, especially our guests, Russ, Daryl, Ryan, and Andrea. Thanks so much. We've recalled how our small life in Lindsey, Ohio, a lot today impacted our lives and careers in real estate. As we close today, please keep in mind our goal is to communicate, educate, entertain, and connect with you, our listeners. We are both realtors with Keller Williams, and we are here to help you find the perfect property for your family to call home and create your own lasting memories and build a wonderful life. If you are in San Antonio or South Central Texas, I'm available to assist you, while Donna is in Tucson, Arizona. If you're across the United States or around the world, we are both part of extensive networks of professional real estate advisors, and we are happy to connect you with an amazing realtor, like Rachel Zimmerman Williams. Remember, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. Until next time, I'm Eric.
And I'm Donna.
And we are Real Siblings. Bye, y'all.
Bye.